Welcome back, Defenders. Jake here. Today's video is going to be interesting. Ukraine's military says village near Bakhmut's liberated. Actually, as of this morning, it's two villages. Both Klishchiivka and Andriivka have been liberated. Now, Russia denies losing these frontline villages to Ukraine, but you can't tell something's true until the Kremlin officially denies it. For operational security, Ukraine always waits 48 hours before releasing pictures and videos, but here are Ukrainian defenders in the center of Klishchiivka, and the Russians are nowhere to be found. So they've been fighting over this village for over a month. This has to feel good. Let me share just a little bit of this video with you.
Ми, воїни 80-ї окремої десантно-штурмової бригади, 5-ї окремої штурмової бригади, окремої об'єднаної штурмової бригади поліції «Людь», виконали завдання, звільнили населений пункт Кліщіївка Донецької області від російських окупантів. Проте ворог не полишає спроб захватити Азов. Працює всіма можливими.
Well done. Now, in the last 2 days, Ukraine's Ministry of Defense has put out a couple spectacular videos showing you what the battle for Andriivka looked like. This video is a first-person GoPro camera, so if you want to see what it's like for the soldiers fighting on the ground, it's 2 minutes and 50 seconds. I'll link it down below. I can't show any of the clip because there are corpses on the ground. Additionally, yesterday, this is a 3-minute clip also showing the battle for Andriivka. This has more aerial and drone strikes on Russian positions, but basically all the Russians were annihilated. And this is all that remains of Andriivka. This was a very small village with maybe a couple dozen houses, 2 streets, and this is all that remains. The Russians had already destroyed it when they took it initially, so Ukraine going the other direction, you're just fighting over rubble basically. So people ask, why is the counteroffensive taking so long? And I'll link this video down below as well, but it's not a video game. You can't respawn if you're shot. If you're shot, you're going to be out of the game for a while if you survive. So Ukraine is moving at the pace that they feel that they can sustain, taking as few casualties as possible and protecting the lives of their soldiers. So here is Klishchiivka and Andriivka. It's been added in the blue color. This is south of Bakhmut. The Russians more or less can no longer resupply Bakhmut from this road. It's too close for mortar fire. So the next objective, obviously, is continuing east. They want to get to Apina. The goal is to encircle Bakhmut, not to try and go into it. The urban warfare would be too costly. But if Ukraine can continue making progress and cut off this road, then any Russians north of this road won't be able to hold these positions. I think this is why Ukraine has been focusing more on the south as opposed to the north, but they're still making progress in the northern direction as well. So how are Russians reacting to all of these losses? Something is wrong in our kingdom. Russians are panicking after the Ukrainian strike on Sevastopol last week. The massive attack on the Black Sea fleet and continuing drone strikes on Moscow have many Russians rattled and calling for President Putin to do something in response. So last week, Ukraine used Western-supplied cruise missiles to destroy a dry dock, a landing ship, and a submarine. And what was Russia's response? What was Putin's response? They're already engaged in a genocide, operating at full capacity. There's nothing more the Russians are capable of doing. Russian servicemen helped Ukraine plan missile strike on Sevastopol shipyard, according to partisans. In an exclusive comment to the Kyiv Post, Ukrainian partisans operating in occupied Crimea have provided further details relating to the overwhelming strike from last week. So, of course, there are Ukrainian patriots who have been living under Russian occupation in Crimea for 9 years. Hundreds, if not thousands or tens of thousands, who are feeding information to Ukrainian intelligence. What are the Russians doing? Where are they operating? They're probably engaging in acts of sabotage. It's never going to stop until the Russian military is expelled from all the occupied territories. Ukrainian situation reports, rumors swirl of new attacks on the Black Sea Fleet. 2 Russian warships appeared in Sevastopol under tow, but without clear signs of damage. So people are referring to this picture, and this is a Russian corvette that came under a Ukrainian drone attack, and it had to be towed back to Sevastopol. The ship does look like it's sagging in the back and to its left, so you can't really tell if there's significant damage from this photo, but it could be on the other side. The point is that Russia has to get out of Sevastopol. Russians moved 3 landing ships from the Black Sea to the Sea of Azov, according to Ukraine's Navy spokesman. This is the question I was asking myself last week. Is Russia going to deny reality and keep valuable military assets in Sevastopol when their air defenses can no longer protect their assets? Or are they going to pull them back farther to mainland Russia? So here's the Black Sea, and the Black Sea Fleet can no longer safely operate in the Black Sea. The strike in Novorossiysk, this was last month, the strike in Sevastopol last week. Russia is choosing to pull their landing ships back to the Sea of Azov behind the Crimean Bridge in order to protect them from all these naval drones. Ukraine's vice prime minister vows more drones for strikes on Russian warships. He stated that Ukrainian aerial drone production is going to go up over 100 times over the next year. Not a 100% increase, that would be a 2x increase. 100 times. 100 times more drones will be produced over the next year than are currently being produced now. So how is this possible? Ukraine receives 3D printers from the United States that can print parts for military equipment. Citing Bill LaPlante, the Undersecretary of Defense for Acquisition and Sustainment, he states that Ukrainians have completed training on these printers last week. We're talking about a printer like a truck size that the Ukrainians have finished training on. He said that the delivery of these printers is changing the ballgame because they accelerate the process and open up new possibilities. So Ukraine has received 3 military-grade industrial 3D printers that can print basically anything. To give you some perspective, here's a clip from CNBC showing one of these massive 3D printers building a speedboat in less than a day. I'll go ahead and play the clip for you. I can't show the sound because of the copyright. But here's one of these 3D printers building a complete boat in less than a day. If Ukraine wants to make a smaller drone boat, I don't imagine it would be challenging, and they could probably pump out 4 or 5 a day. You then just have to add the warhead and the electronics to the boat. But as far as the structure or parts or materials, all of this can be fabricated. It can all be 3D printed. It's pretty cool. Russian lawmaker says draftees won't be rotated out of Ukraine until the war is done. This is some serious Stalin-era stuff. The Russian government is telling their soldiers, it's either victory or death. Either you secure the new borders for the empire, or you're never going to be allowed to go home and see your families. Mobilized Russians will not return home until the end of the war. This was announced by the chairman of the State Duma Committee on Defense, Andrei And just back on September 9th, the same guy said, The rotation of the mobilized was to take place at the expense of contract soldiers. Nope. Everyone's staying until the empire secures its new borders. Eventually, Russian soldiers sitting in the trenches have to realize this is a death sentence. Russia cannot win this war, and Putin is saying they will not accept loss. So if you're a soldier sitting in the trenches on the front lines and you can't win, then you know you're just sitting there waiting to die. Eventually, a Ukrainian artillery shell is going to get you in that trench. It'll be an interesting day once soldiers on the front lines en masse finally start realizing this, but Russia's taking horrendous losses. The next round of mass mobilization will be occurring at some point in the next 2 or 3 weeks. Russia needs another 300,000 or 500,000 men because they're just really bad at this war. They're just really incompetent. So Russia is trying to get creative about getting more bodies on the front lines, and there's an insane report that they're tricking Cuban citizens into being sent to the front lines in Ukraine. Cuba's regime sent fighters to help Russia in Ukraine. Now it's trying to cover its tracks. Cuba issues conflicting statements on use of its citizens in Ukraine war. So somebody in the Cuban government teamed up with somebody from the Russian government, and they tricked a bunch of Cuban citizens to go to Russia for construction jobs. Russia's doing the exact same thing with impoverished people from Central Asia, promising them good wages, good salaries, for just clearing jobs. You're not going to be a soldier fighting on the front lines. You're going to be far from the front lines, clearing rubble and rebuilding homes, but it's a lie. And here is a video of two 19-year-old Cuban, it's hard to call them men, they're basically boys, and they got tricked into going to Russia, and they were sent to the war zone. They were sent to Ukraine. So this is two men in a Russian hospital somewhere, filming this video for the internet, begging anyone for help, begging anyone to come get them or help them be released. So they're speaking Spanish, of course. I'll link the video down below if you want to listen to it, but I'm going to read the subtitles. This is what they say. The contract was a scam, and they told us it was for construction work to repair houses devastated by the war, to dig trenches, to pick up rubble. In the end, it was all a scam. Everything was a scam. They haven't paid us. We don't have our passports. We don't have our documents. We have nothing. Right now, we're here in some Russian hospital. They took away all of our documents. As soon as we got here in Russia, they took away all of our documents. We've been to 7 different cities in Russia. No one's done anything in all the hospitals we've been to. It's all the same. They've run the same tests on us. Nobody knows anything about us. When we signed the contracts, they told us we couldn't have them translated. They were in Russian. We didn't know what the contracts said. They told us not to worry, to just sign them, nothing else. After a short time, they sent us to a military unit in Ryazan, and from there, they sent us to Ukraine. We were in Ryazan for about 2 weeks. After 2 weeks, they told us we would be sent to a different area, supposedly a better area. It was always a better area. You're going to a better area. We ended up in Ukraine, the third line of Russian defense. Everything was calm for a while. They trained us, then we got sick, and we came here. But now our friends are on the first line. And nobody has told us anything about that we'd end up on the front line or even the second line. Everything about the Cubans are fine is a lie. Many Cubans are missing in action. Many Cubans whose families know nothing about them. And everything was a scam. The ones who gave us the contracts are a Cuban woman and a Russian woman, and that's it. They just told us to sign. And so far, they haven't paid us, haven't attended to us, haven't given us back our documents. They got us in a hospital here, and nobody knows anything about us. What we need is for someone to help us, I don't know, any way you can. However you can, help us get out of here. Because over here, oh, and the other thing, nobody here understands a word we're saying. You tell them something and they understand nothing. Nothing. They don't help. They don't respond. We ask them something, they don't understand, they don't even respond. The same tests they've run on us in 5 other hospitals, they're doing here. So obviously these boys speak Spanish, and nobody in these Russian hospitals speaks Spanish. So this is sad. I have sympathy for these men, impoverished from Cuba. They thought that they were going to get construction jobs in Russia. But this is what the Russians do. They lie about everything. They take away your documents. They don't pay you. And they just wait for you to die on the front lines in Ukraine. You're just being used as cannon fodder. So what else is going on? Chechen leader Kadyrov is in critical condition. According to Ukraine's security service, they've confirmed that the Chechen leader is in serious condition due to an illness. So the rumors the last 6 months is that Kadyrov has been poisoned. Like poisoned numerous times by different people. It's probably a conspiracy, a network trying to assassinate this guy, but maybe they finally got to him. He's got to drink water and eat eventually. And this speculation has been happening for a while that he's experienced kidney failure. He maybe had to go to the United Arab Emirates for treatment, but I'll believe it when it's official. If he is dead or dying eventually, Russia's going to have to acknowledge it. In the meantime, they put out some videos on his social media, pretending like he's doing okay, but there's no timestamp or any indication that these videos were taken recently. Massive fire breaks out in St. Petersburg. Here's a picture of the fire. This was a shopping center and restaurant in downtown St. Petersburg, and yeah, it's a pretty big fire. I've said this in the past, I could have an entire YouTube channel dedicated to just things in Russia on fire. There are mysterious and unexplained fires happening all across Russia all the time these days, and what are due to negligence and incompetence, what are due to sabotage. I mean, there's no real investigations, there's no real reporting, so we'll never know. For the second time in just a few days, a Urals Airlines passenger plane had to make an emergency landing in a field due to a hydraulics failure. We don't have any cool pictures or videos this time, so I'm guessing the Russian government took everyone's electronics, deleted all the pictures and videos to not let the world see this. But anyone still flying domestic on a Ural Airlines passenger plane, you've got a death wish. This is incredibly irresponsible for the Russian government to continue letting airlines operate these stolen planes when none of them are getting proper maintenance and parts from Boeing and Airbus. Let's get to the good news. Japan has decided to fly out additional wounded Ukrainian soldiers for treatment and rehab in Tokyo. The first 2 Ukrainian soldiers to receive treatment in Japan were transported in June. Japan is covering all the costs, including for their prosthetics. Thank you so much, Japan. Here's a fun video I want to share with you. Here are some Ukrainian defenders returning from a combat mission.
Охуеть, ебать.
Just another day fighting the Russians. Final clip, I'm sorry, is not a feel-good one, but it's one that I think people need to see. This video is of a Ukrainian girl seeing that her kindergarten has been destroyed by the Russian military.
Маша, чого ти плачеш? Бо садочка не стало. Ти за садиком плачеш, да?
Так. Давай вийдемо вже.
Щас вийде, Маша.
Садочок. Давай мама допомагає.
Так туди не заходить, бачиш? Садочок зарували.
Just heartbreaking. But I want to share this clip and remind everyone of this UNICEF report that the Russian military has destroyed 1,300 schools in Ukraine. It's not an accident that the Russian military has destroyed 1,300 Ukrainian schools. They're deliberately targeting them. And the goal is genocide. If they can't steal the children, they're happy to kill the children. And the goal is to stop Ukraine from educating their children about their language, their culture, their history. They want to steal these people and Russify them. Tell them they've always been Russian and that the Ukrainian ethnicity, the Ukrainian national identity doesn't exist. That's the definition of a genocide. Russia will be stopped. Ukraine will win this war. That's all for this update video. Glory to Ukraine, glory to the heroes. If you found this video informative, give me a thumbs up. Best way to support the channel. Comments and questions, let me know down below. I love hearing from you guys. Till the next video, keep defending the truth, keep defending democracy.